Do you know what truly separates a woman who has a man completely devoted to her from the one he keeps waiting around? It's not what most people believe. It's not about how beautiful you are. It's not about how successful you've become. It's not about how perfectly you treat him or how available you make yourself. It's something much more simple, something that many women completely miss. If you've ever found yourself wondering where you stand with someone, questioning whether you're his first choice or just another name in his phone, or if you've ever felt that sick feeling in your stomach that comes when his attention feels like it might disappear at any moment, this will change everything, because what I'm about to reveal goes against nearly everything you've been taught about winning a man's heart. After watching countless relationships and really studying what actually makes men choose one woman over all others, I discovered something that shocked me. The women who become impossible to replace, who never question their place in his life, are not following the common advice. In fact, they see something most women completely miss. And the difference is so clear that once you see it, you'll never wonder about your position again. You'll finally understand why some women become his whole world, while others stay forever unsure, always fighting for scraps of his attention. The truth is, there are 4 specific things that show exactly how he sees you. And if you're experiencing even one of them, you're not his priority. You're just an option. Now, before you think this is just another list telling you to play hard to get or mess with his head, stop for a moment. What I've discovered about men who see you as optional runs much deeper than games. Picture this. You're seeing someone who seems really interested. The conversations flow, there's chemistry, and when you're ether, everything feels right. But then something changes. His texts become random. He disappears for days, then shows up again acting normal like nothing happened. You find yourself reading every message over and over, wondering what went wrong. Here's what no one tells you. When a man sees you as just an option, his communication becomes about what's convenient for him, not about staying connected to you. Think about how you talk to people who really matter to you. Your best friends, your family, the people you work with that you respect. There's a steady rhythm there, right? You don't just vanish for 3 days and then pop back up expecting everything to be fine. You don't leave important messages hanging while you decide if you feel like responding. But when someone is optional in your life, when they're nice to have around but not necessary, your communication shows that. You respond when it works for you. You reach out when you're bored. You engage when you have nothing better to do. Let me tell you about Sarah. She's 29, smart, successful, and she met Marcus through friends. Their first few dates were amazing. He texted her every morning, called her at night, made plans days ahead. Sarah felt chosen, special, like his priority. But slowly, something started to change. Marcus would go quiet for 2 days, then send a casual, "Hey, how's your week going?" Like the silence was totally normal. He'd respond to her messages hours later with short replies, but she'd see him posting on social media. When she'd try to make plans, he'd be vague. "Let's see how the week goes," he'd say. Or, "I'll let you know closer to the weekend." Sarah found herself walking on eggshells, carefully writing her messages to sound cool and casual. She started timing her responses, making sure she didn't seem too eager. She was managing his opinion of her instead of just being herself. Here's the part that hurts. Marcus wasn't treating her this way because he was busy or stressed or dealing with personal stuff. He was treating her this way because she had become optional in his mind. She was someone he could take or leave, someone whose feelings he didn't need to worry about too much because she'd proven she would accept inconsistent treatment. When a man truly values you, when you're not just an option but a priority, his communication shows that right away. He doesn't leave you guessing about his interest. He doesn't create confusion where there should be clarity. He doesn't make you feel like you're competing for his attention. But here's what's really happening underneath. When you accept hot and cold communication, when you make excuses for his disappearing acts, when you tell yourself that he's just busy or that's just how he is, you're teaching him that your time and feelings are not valuable enough to deserve consistency. You want to know the difference between a man who's actually busy and a man who sees you as optional. A busy man tells you his schedule. He says, "I'm crazy with this project until Thursday, but I want to call you Friday night." A man who's interested creates clarity, not confusion. The man who sees you as optional creates confusion because confusion keeps you available. When you're not sure where you stand, you stay accessible. When you're not certain about his feelings, you work harder for his attention. When his communication is all over the place, you become grateful for whatever attention he gives you. Think about your own behavior. When someone matters to you, really matters, do you leave them hanging? Do you disappear without explanation? Do you respond to their messages with barely any effort while giving your full attention to less important conversations? The answer is no, because when someone is important to you, you treat their communication as important. You respond with thought and care. You don't make them guess about your interest or whether you're available. This isn't about being clingy or demanding constant contact. It's about recognizing that consistent, respectful communication is the foundation of any real connection. When that foundation is shaky, everything built on top of it becomes unstable. The truth that changes everything. A man who values you doesn't make you work to figure out his interest level through his texting patterns. He makes his interest clear through consistent, respectful, engaging communication. If you're analyzing his response times, making excuses for his silence, or feeling grateful for basic courtesy, you're not dealing with someone who sees you as a priority. The third way you'll know you're just an option is perhaps the most subtle yet most telling of all: how he handles getting close emotionally with you. When a man sees you as just one of many possibilities, he carefully controls how much of himself he shows you, not because he's necessarily hiding something terrible, but because emotional vulnerability creates connection, and connection makes it harder to keep someone as just an option. Picture this scenario. You've been seeing someone for a few months. The physical chemistry is obvious. The conversations are fun and you have a good time together, but there's something that feels guarded. When conversations get deeper, he smoothly changes the subject. When you share something personal, he responds nicely but doesn't share anything personal back. You know about his job, his friends, his hobbies, but you don't really know him. Here's what's happening underneath. He's keeping emotional distance because emotional closeness creates attachment, and attachment makes it impossible to keep you as just an option. Let me tell you about Maria's experience. She met Alex through a dating app, and their connection seemed promising. They had great chemistry, liked similar things, and their dates were always fun. But Maria noticed something strange. Alex would share funny stories about his day, talk about his opinions on movies and politics, and even mention his family, but only on the surface. When Maria opened up about her struggles with anxiety, Alex was supportive, but didn't share any of his own challenges. When she talked about her dreams for the future, he listened carefully but stayed vague about his own goals. When she tried to understand what made him tick, his fears, what motivated him, his deeper thoughts, she felt like she was trying to connect with someone wearing emotional armor. Here's the reality that many women miss. A man who's considering you as just one option among many will give you access to his time, his attention, and even his body, but he won't give you access to his inner world. Because once you're in his inner world, once you understand what drives him, what scares him, what he dreams about in quiet moments, you stop being optional, you become necessary. Think about your own closest relationships, the people who matter most to you, the ones who've seen your full range of emotions. They've witnessed your struggles, celebrated your wins, and understood your fears. That vulnerability didn't happen overnight, but it happened naturally because connection deepened over time. When a man keeps you emotionally compartmentalized, when he shares his schedule but not his struggles, his opinions but not his insecurities, his humor but not his hurt, he's maintaining the distance necessary to keep you optional. But here's something fascinating about men and emotional connection. Most men want deep emotional closeness just as much as women do. They want to be truly seen, understood, and accepted for who they really are. But they're also very aware that emotional vulnerability creates attachment. So when they're not sure about someone, when they're keeping their options open, they unconsciously create emotional walls. The difference is huge. The man who sees you as optional protects his emotional world from you. The man who sees you as essential invites you into it. Ask yourself, does he share his struggles as well as his successes? Do you understand his fears as well as his ambitions? Can you sense his emotional landscape, or does he feel like a stranger wearing a friendly mask? Does he seem curious about your inner world, or does he keep conversations safely on the surface? If you feel like you're getting to know someone's public face rather than their real self, you're likely dealing with someone who's keeping you compartmentalized. And compartmentalization is the enemy of real connection. And now we come to the fourth and perhaps most revealing sign, the dramatic imbalance in who's doing the emotional and practical work in whatever relationship you have. When a man sees you as just an option, he becomes comfortable letting you carry the weight of keeping the connection alive. You become the one who starts most conversations, suggests most plans, remembers important details, and works to keep things moving forward. Meanwhile, he shows up when it's convenient and puts in the minimum effort required to keep you interested. This isn't always obvious at first. In fact, many women don't realize they've fallen into this pattern until they step back and honestly look at who's been driving the relationship. Let me tell you about Carmen's wake-up call. She's 28, a project manager who's used to taking charge and making things happen in her work life. When she met Dylan, she was immediately drawn to his laid-back personality. Such a nice change from her high-energy work environment. But after 3 months of dating, Carmen had a sobering realization. She had started 80% of their text conversations. She had suggested most of their date ideas. She had been the one to bring up where their relationship was heading. She had remembered his important work presentation and texted him good luck. She had picked up his favorite coffee when he mentioned being tired. She had been doing all the emotional work while he simply responded to her efforts. Here's what Carmen discovered. Dylan wasn't laid back. He was lazy about their connection because she had made it easy for him to be lazy. She had taken on the role of pursuing him, which meant he never had to pursue her. And when a man doesn't have to pursue you, when everything is handed to him through your effort, you become convenient rather than valuable. Think about this from a psychological perspective. What do we value most? The things we have to work for, the things that require our investment, our time, our energy, our thought. When something comes easily, when it requires no effort from us, we take it for granted. This is human nature, not a character flaw specific to men. If someone always calls you, you stop calling them. If someone always plans the activities, you stop planning activities. If someone always remembers the important things, you stop remembering important things. The person doing all the work trains the other person to be passive. But here's the deeper issue. When you're consistently putting in more than he is, you're not building a relationship. You're building a dependency. He becomes dependent on your effort to maintain the connection, and you become dependent on his positive responses to feel valued. Let me paint you a picture of what balance looks like. When Sophia met Miguel, their early interactions had a natural rhythm. He would text her Monday morning asking about her weekend. She would text him Wednesday, suggesting a restaurant she'd heard about. He would call her Friday evening to finalize their weekend plans. She would send him an article she thought he'd find interesting. He would remember she had a big meeting and check in afterward. If you're honest about these questions and the answers consistently point to you, you're not in a mutual relationship. You're in a situation where you're pursuing someone who's allowing himself to be pursued. Here's the truth that will transform everything. You are not auditioning for the role of being someone's priority. You don't earn that position through perfect behavior, endless availability, or exceptional treatment of someone who treats you as optional. When a man truly values you, when you're not just an option but an irreplaceable part of his life, you feel it in every interaction. His communication is consistent because talking with you matters to him. His planning is intentional because time with you is precious to him. His emotional walls come down because connection with you is his goal, not his fear. His investment matches yours because he's as committed to building something beautiful as you are. The women who never question their place in a man's life aren't more beautiful, more successful, or more perfect than you. They simply refuse to accept optional treatment. They recognize the 4 signs we've discussed, and they respond with clarity rather than When someone's communication is hot and cold, they don't make excuses or try harder to earn consistency. They recognize that consistent communication is a basic requirement for any meaningful connection, and they don't settle for less. When someone's planning is last minute and low effort, they don't convince themselves that spontaneity is romantic. They understand that intentional planning reflects intentional interest, and they don't accept being treated like an afterthought. When someone maintains emotional distance, they don't work overtime to break down walls. They recognize that emotional closeness should develop naturally in healthy connections, and they don't chase unavailable people. When someone creates investment imbalances, they don't increase their efforts to compensate. They step back and create space for mutual investment, understanding that one-sided relationships aren't relationships at all. This isn't about playing games or manipulating outcomes. This is about recognizing your own value and refusing to accept treatment that doesn't reflect that value. Think about the relationships in your life where you've never questioned your importance, your closest friendships, your family bonds, your work relationships, where you feel respected and valued. In these connections, you don't wonder where you stand because it's obvious. You don't analyze responses because they're consistently warm and engaging. You don't question investment because it's mutual. The same clarity is possible in romantic connections. When you're dealing with someone who sees you as essential rather than optional, that certainty extends to every aspect of your interaction with them. The choice is yours. You can continue accepting optional treatment while hoping it transforms into priority treatment, or you can recognize that your worth isn't determined by someone else's ability to see it. When you truly understand your value, when you stop trying to convince others of your worth and start expecting them to recognize it naturally, everything changes. You stop accepting hot and cold communication because you know you deserve reliability. You stop accepting low effort planning because you know you deserve intention. You stop accepting emotional distance because you know you deserve closeness. You stop accepting investment imbalances because you know you deserve reciprocity. And here's what's beautiful about this transformation. The right person, the person who's meant to be in your life, will meet these standards naturally. You won't have to teach them how to value you, how to prioritize you, or how to treat you with consistency and care. They'll do these things because that's how they treat people who matter to them. You are not just an option. You never were. You are someone worth prioritizing, worth consistent communication, worth intentional planning, worth emotional closeness, and worth mutual investment. The moment you truly believe this, the moment you stop accepting anything less, is the moment everything